Hi guys, welcome back. Oh, I feel all in a bit of a like funny state today. It's like muggy in the house. I think it's due to like pour with rain here. It feels all like funny. Anyway, good evening, good morning, good day, whatever time it may be there. I am excited today to talk to you all a little bit about breastfeeding. I was concerned about whether to do this video because I feel overall I've been so lucky with my whole breastfeeding experience. I never ever dreamt that I would do it for this long and that I would have so much success with it. So I feel for you if you are watching this and you're struggling or you haven't been able to breastfeed, but I do also want to say that fed is best. I just want to make that clear. I by no means have any judgment or any preference. I just believe that whichever way you can feed your baby, that is the best way. So yeah, but if you do want to try breastfeeding and you are having twins and you need some help or advice, I mean, I can't really give you advice, but I can just tell you what I've done, and we'll go from there. My hair is just so greasy all the time. I'm literally washing it like every other day. I can't keep up with it. It's driving me mad. So anyway, yeah, let's begin. I have written some notes on my phone, so sorry if I keep looking down, but I cannot remember what it is that I want to tell you. So let's begin. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my experience from pre-birth to now, which is 5 months in. Before I had the boys and when I was pregnant, I didn't do that much research. The hospital sent me some videos on breastfeeding and it was mostly just a guide showing you how to latch the baby correctly. But I'll be honest, watching that, you just can't understand how to do that until you physically have a baby in front of you. But I did watch them all and I did read as much as I can online and watch some YouTube videos just to get a bit more information from other people. I didn't ever really worry myself whether I was going to feed them both or both together or separately or what. I just thought when they are here and I'm trying to do it, I'll just see how it goes and we'll go from there. So yeah, I didn't do much research in that respect, but I did just watch some videos and watch some explanations of other people and their experiences just to have a bit of a feel of understanding about it. So once I got to the hospital, I did start breastfeeding straight away. I think it was like half an hour after having the boys that I was in the room and the lady brought them to me and she helped me try and figure out how to get them on and get them latched and just start feeding them straight away. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing and you just don't have a clue if they're drinking anything or what, but they did also show me how to hand express, and I'll be honest, I really couldn't get to terms with that and I couldn't do it. So I just used to hold the boys to me and hope that they were getting something, and when they did the weights before we left they obviously were, so that was all fine. And I think I was in the hospital for 3 days and I think the last 2 days I did use the pump and I did express some colostrum and then I used syringes to feed it to the boys. So that was kind of my backup. I thought if I got home and all else failed, at least I could do that. So that kind of put me at ease and made me relax. So we had the lactation consultant come into the room when I was in the hospital and she showed me a little bit and helped me and guided me with it. She did say, I had read that sometimes with twins it's good to designate them one boob each, and I ran that by her and she told me not to do that, and I can't remember her reasoning, but I think it was something like one may feed better than the other. Oh, they've woken up, they're supposed to be napping. I'll leave him, hopefully he'll drift back off. Yeah, but she told me not to do that, so I never did do that. And I'll be honest, I haven't worried myself sick about who was on which side. I've just tried to make sure that it's not always Henry on my right or always Jack on my right and just switch it about, and that's been fine also. But what I would say is my supply has been good, so hopefully some of the things that I list here will be reasons why, and that might help you. So as far as I can remember, my milk must have come in 2 or 3 days after I'd left the hospital. So I was in the hospital for 3 days, so it was a good week. And people kept asking me like, oh, has your milk come in? And I had no idea. I was like, surely I'm going to know. And I'll be honest, I don't really know if I knew when it came in. I just remember feeling like they were so full suddenly, so I'm guessing it was that day, but I have no idea. I didn't have any sudden like leakage or sudden milk coming everywhere. It was just a gradual thing, I guess. I was overly concerned about getting mastitis, and at the beginning they did used to get so engorged and painful, and I was paranoid, so probably did used to feed the boys slightly more often than they even demanded, because I was just worried that I was going to not empty them properly, and that probably just actually doesn't help in some ways. But I do put that solely to always having enough milk for them, because I did stay on top of feeding them very, very regularly. There was one time that I thought I got mastitis, and I remember feeling a lot of pain, and I did a lot of hot compress and a hot shower and massage, and luckily by the next day, I would say within 24 hours, it was fine and it had gone. And I did use Jack, who was always the not better feeder, but he would drink a lot more, so I would always use him on the side that I felt like I may be getting mastitis, so I knew that he may clear the ducts. If there was a clog, he should get it out. So yeah, that was that. I'm going to try not to jump around too much in this video. I'm trying to tell you my experience in stages, but sorry, because sometimes something's relevant, so I jump about. But yeah, that was the hospital. So going on to the first month when I got out of hospital back home. This month was crazy. Now I look back at it, I'm like, oh my God, did I really do that? I fed them separately for the first month at least. I was too scared to even attempt tandem feeding, and quite frankly, it scared me as to how I would have two and hold them both and it all go to plan. So the first month, it was mostly, I was focusing on being relaxed, them being relaxed, making sure they were latched properly and giving them enough time to drink. And it probably used to take 30 minutes per baby. Like, I was feeding for an hour, and then all the burping and changing, I was pretty much back at feeding them again within like an hour after. So yeah, it was intense, but I didn't know any different, and I just cracked on with it. And obviously in the nights that was hard. Like, I was getting up every 2.5 3 hours doing that in the night, and I'm sure there was some days when I fell asleep literally feeding the baby. But anyway, we got through it, and yeah, that was the first month. I used the boppy pillow to feed them, and yeah, I mean, I would feed them in all sorts of places: chairs, beds, cars, wherever. Some things that I did notice that maybe tips is they would slip off or unlatch if the nipple became too wet. Sometimes maybe if they had too much milk in their mouth and they just slipped and lost the latch, so I would like use the burp cloth just to dry it off and re-latch them. Sometimes it would help, I found, if they weren't latching properly, to kind of compress your boob and stick your nipple right in. Make sure they've got a lot of it in their mouth, and that would help. And then also getting a little bit of milk out before feeding them sometimes would help, so they would taste it and know, oh okay, I'm gonna eat now. But all in all, I'd say at the beginning there, just have patience with yourself, try and relax, don't rush. I was lucky in the respect that I didn't have one baby like crazy crying. I didn't let them reach that stage of like unbearable crying because they were hungry. I would literally stick to the 3-hour feeding, if not 2.5, if I saw them becoming frustrated. And I would always feed the baby that was getting frustrated first and then move on to the second. As time went by, I guess they did kind of get a bit more fussy as they knew each other were eating and they got hungrier. So that I'll move on to that, but that is why I came to tandem feeding them eventually. But for the first month, yeah, just patience, relax. You're learning, they're learning, so there's a lot to get used to, and it does get easier. Onto the kind of 8-week mark, which I guess I would have started tandem feeding about then. There was a few reasons for this. One, I had a friend message me and just tell me, like, you need to at least try, come on, you might find it works okay and you wish you'd have started. And thank God she encouraged me, because I was so nervous to even try. I thought it would make me frustrated, it would make them frustrated, and the whole thing would just fall apart. But they were starting to get hungry at the same time, and I was noticing that I'd have one screaming baby while I was feeding the other, which was stressing me out. Aled was back at work, so he couldn't have the other baby while I was feeding one, and the whole thing was just beginning to become very tricky. I remember having like a little bouncy chair and putting one there and trying to give him the dummy and feed the other one, but then I couldn't reach if he dropped the dummy because the baby that was feeding would unlatch, and it was all becoming so tricky. So yeah, there was one evening I was like, right, I'm gonna go upstairs, I'm gonna try with this bloody twinsy pillow, which I'll grab in a minute, and try and feed them both together. And I can't remember what happened. I think I had a couple of times that it worked really well at the beginning, and then it went really hard again, so I stopped and then I started again. But it took a good week, I would say, to get into the gist of it, but I never looked back, and from that time I never fed them separately again, unless I was finding that I was getting like pain from them unlatching too much and too frequently, and then I'd have like a day where I didn't feed them together. But yeah, all in all, I never looked back, and I'm so glad I gave it a go. So if you're currently watching this and you're like, oh, I want to try but I'm nervous, just try. Just give yourself time and try, because it saves so much time. Now they probably feed in like 5 to 7 minutes. It's so quick and it's done. So yeah, you will get there, and if you don't, it's fine. You haven't lost out on anything. You just go back to feeding them separately. So at the beginning I did get Ali to come and help me, and he would be there at hand if I felt like I couldn't reposition them or change them. And I used to worry about them falling off, but that really wasn't a worry at the beginning because they couldn't roll and they didn't move. So that was pretty simple to start with. That has become harder later on, but I'll explain a bit more about that in detail later. So yeah, that's it for the tandem feeding. Let me grab the pillow and just show you. So this is the pillow that I use. It's called the Twinsy pillow. You put this part behind your back, and then these come around your front and just connect together with this clip, and then you have one baby on this side and one baby on the other. You will have seen in some of my videos me using that and how I do it. It's been pretty good and I can't complain about it. It's been super useful, but I have seen some others that women have been using, and they're much more sturdy and they're much more like, they hold their shape, and I feel like that would be a lot better, because that thing, the cushioning has like slowly got worse and worse over time, and I find now that one of them is much lower down than the other, or like lopsided, and it's just not very what's the word, robust. It's not very robust. So there may be other ones that are good out there, but sorry, that had a lot of good reviews, so that's why I got it. And at this point I'm not about to be looking for anything else, because I'm slowly starting to stop breastfeeding. So it's done its job. It's been great for 5 months, so I definitely recommend. But if I could rewind time, I would probably buy another one earlier once I'd started feeding them both together, and just see if another one was more easy to use. So going on to pain. Yes, no one really tells you, well, everyone tells you it's painful, but no one really tells you that it can just be painful anyway. Like, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong. It is just generally gonna be painful because it's the first time you've ever done this and your body is getting used to something new, right? For me, I was expecting it to be painful straight away, so I thought I'd kind of got away with it, and I think it was about the 5-6 week mark that I started to get really bad pains. I had just a general pain from the constant feeding that they were doing, and I also got this thing called vasospasm. Can't remember what it's called, but it's basically where the baby clamps down too hard, or the latch is incorrect, and it just feels so uncomfortable after they've fed. You get like shooting pains, and if you go into the cold, it's so painful. And I know that there was a week where I was like, I'm gonna quit, this is too painful, but I just kept going, and then the pain went and you get through it. Two lifesavers for me were the lanolin cream and the Multimam compression pads, which I've shown in my pre-hospital bag video and another video. I'll try and link one here so that you can see. But yeah, they saved my life, and those pads, there were many nights that I just slept with those on and went out with them on. So definitely can recommend those. They're like there's like a cold gel inside them, and they're sticky, so they're great. They stay on and they just give you a bit of relief. But yeah, just be ready that it is gonna hurt. It generally just does hurt. I don't know many people that have not had any pain, so you just have to deal with it, but it doesn't last forever, and it's just a small price to pay when you get through it, and you will be pleased that you've done it. So keep going, keep applying the creams, and just cry it out if it's that painful. So going on to pumping, because that is an all-time question. I didn't really have any guidance with this. I thought the hospital were going to help me loads. I didn't even look at what pump I should be getting. I think I rang the hospital and asked them if they had any advice, and they just told me to get one from the hospital, get a rental hospital grade pump, because they're much more efficient, and seeing as I'm having twins, they thought that that was the best option. Now, I'm not sure if it was, because the pump that I had is a Medela, I don't know, I think it's a Medela Symphony. I'll try and grab it. If not, I'll write here what it was, because the boys are sleeping and it's in that room. But it's been great. The only con is that it plugs in. You cannot leave the space that you're in, and that has become very tricky when I didn't have Aled there to occupy the boys and they needed me, and I was stuck to this pump. Like, I couldn't move to help them, so I would need to block out time where he was available to pump, really. And then I would always pump an hour after feeding them. When they were feeding separately, I'd do half an hour after I'd finished feeding, just because of the time that I had before I had to start feeding again. But yeah, when I was feeding them separately, I'd wait 30 minutes and then do the 15-minute pump session. And when I was feeding them tandem feeding, I would wait an hour after I'd finished and pump. And it was a 15-minute cycle. I started off doing it 3 times a day. That was during Aled's paternity leave, and he had a couple of weeks off after. So for that span of time, I was pumping 3 times a day, and it gradually decreased. Now I'm not using it at all. But yeah, it became very hard to find the time to do it, but I did stick to it for 3 to 4 months, and I've got loads of milk in the freezer, so I'm going to be trying to use that up over the next few weeks and mixing it in with their purees and things like that. But I didn't stress myself out about pumping. Sometimes I didn't get any milk, sometimes I got loads, and I just, whatever happened. I didn't look into it too much. I didn't wonder why. There's probably loads of reasons, probably lots of ways that I could have improved that, but I just didn't stress. I just did as much as I could, and if I missed a day or 2 here and there, I didn't worry about it, and I just carried on the next time. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that if you're having twins. It's a good way to get your milk supply up and make sure you're producing enough for them. One of my friends, she purely pumped, I think, and she had one of those travel pumps that she could use in the car or on the go, and to me it looked like a lifesaver if you are planning on feeding a lot out and about, because for me, the boys didn't take to the bottle when we were out because the breast milk was never like the right temperature, and trying to figure that out when you've frozen it to defrost it and get it like at a warm consistency when you're out is impossible. So we'd have to try and give it to them cold, and they didn't like it. And I met her for lunch one time, and she was like, oh, this is great, I've literally just pumped this milk now in the car for them on the way, and it's like the right temperature. So that would have been really handy, and I would probably, if I was to go back in time, I would look into getting one of those. As for nursing bras, honestly, having twins, I wouldn't bother with them, because you're going to find it easier just to whip everything off if you can. As for being in the car, yeah, I did use a nursing bra, and I had the Bravado nursing bras. They were fine, but I've never tandem fed the boys in the car. I've always fed them separately, and it's never been easy. It's been a huge ordeal, and I've tried to limit the amount of times I've done that, if I'm honest. So yeah, I didn't really make use of the nursing bras at all. Okay, so the final thing I'll talk about is my milk supply. Now, I don't know if any of this is true. I'm just guessing things that I've done that may have helped my milk supply. So I have drunk serious amounts of water. I've always loved drinking water, and I've always drunk loads. Aled always thinks that I'm mad the amount that I drink. He's like, is that even healthy? I just always feel thirsty. So I know I have that big Yeti jug thing, which I've shown you in some of my videos. I probably drink at least 6 or 7 of those a day, 1 through the night. But yeah, I think that's quite a lot of water, so that probably helps. And I know they say water is key, so drink a lot of water. Obviously I said about the pumping, pump as much as you can at the beginning. I remember being like really unsure about this, because I was like, should I pump straight away? Is it not gonna like mean that I'm gonna get too much milk for the boys? But never really had any issues. I would always wait that little bit of time after feeding them, and I would just do the 1 cycle. I never did any of this power pumping or anything like that. And I would feed the boys on demand. The hospital did say always feed on demand, and I know the older generation, they used to feed every 4 hours, I think. But for me, I would not change a thing with that for twins, because they say you need so much more milk, so the more often you feed them, the more often you're going to get the milk in, and you're going to have more problems, and you probably won't be able to breastfeed them for more than 2 months unless you are feeding them very, very frequently. So just try to do it as often as they want at least, and then use the pump as well. Another thing that I have eaten and drunk a lot of is oat milk. I have no idea if this has made any difference to my milk supply, but I did hear that oatmeal was really, really good. And apparently like cow's milk and dairy isn't good for their gas, and our boys were quite gassy at the beginning, so I just never drank any cow's milk, and I just drank oat milk, and I have been drinking oat milk for the past 5 months, and I've eaten oatmeal so many days, so many mornings of the past 5 months. So whether that has a difference on my milk supply, I don't know, but I'm gonna say that it has. I've snacked a lot. I found that I've been very, very hungry as I've been breastfeeding, and I haven't worried about losing weight or anything like that, cutting calories. I've just intuitively eaten when I'm hungry, snacked when I wanted, tried to eat as many healthy foods as I can, but again, I haven't beat myself up about that. At the beginning, I was craving cookies and things like that all the time. I do feel like my body regulated and has got used to feeding them. I still think I eat a lot more than I used to before I had the boys, or before I was feeding the boys. But yeah, I haven't like beat myself up about it, and I've just eaten when I felt hungry, but trying not to overeat, of course. I've limited caffeine. I've drunk decaf tea and coffee in the house, and I've just had maybe 1 coffee if I've been out and wanted a drink, but that's been it for caffeine. There's a few different foods that they list that are not great for babies, and all sorts of different like issues. If your baby has gas or is extra fussy, they say to look at your diet and what you've eaten. I'll be honest, I found that really hard, because I'd overanalyze it, and I'd think, oh, they're extra fussy today, what did I have for dinner? It's like, is that really why they're fussy? They're babies, maybe they're just being fussy. So I didn't worry about that too much. The only times that I've freaked out is when I did have whole milk one time, and one night I ate a lot of tomatoes, which they say aren't great. I think I had like a pasta sauce or something, or a spag bowl, and they were a bit fussy, so I've limited tomatoes, and I haven't had any cow's milk. I don't think there's anything else I can talk about. As far as the feeding goes, I was lucky. I never had to force the boys to eat. I never had to worry about them not getting enough milk. So I don't know how it works with feeding when you have worries like that. I'm sure it is very stressful. So I feel for any of you mums out there that are maybe struggling in that respect. But all I can say is try to relax. Try to do something whilst you're feeding them that makes you relax. I've just always been like in front of the TV, or just put some music on. I used to watch like a lot of YouTubes when I pumped, but just try to relax and know that if you're relaxed, that's going to rub off on them, and it may help them relax and feed better. But yeah, I hope it's been helpful in some ways. I feel like there was a lot of information all sort of scrambled in there together, but I've tried to separate it out. And yeah, if there's any questions you have for me, if anybody's watching this in 5 years' time, please still ask me a question. Hopefully I can remember. And it will be nice to look back. But yeah, overall I've had a really nice experience. It has got so tricky feeding them this past couple of weeks. They've just reached 5 months, and now that they can roll, that pillow is just, it's not happening. I am wondering if I'm gonna have to switch back to feeding them separately, but for now we're trying to switch over to bottles, so hopefully within a month I will only be doing this once or twice a day. But yeah, it's become very hard, so I'm ready now, I think, to give it a little bit of a break. But it's been great. I feel very fortunate to have fed them for this long, and yeah, I can't believe I'm making this video. I remember before having them, I was just like, there's no way I'm going to be feeding them. There's no way I'm going to be breastfeeding 2 boys. But we've got there, we've hit 5 months, and let's get the other month down and done. And yeah, that's it. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this one. If there's anything else that I can answer for you, please let me know, and I'll see you all next time.